Are you guys coming home with Sculpin these days? I've got a great idea. How about a famous Italian fish stew called Cioppino? But here's the deal. It didn't come from Italy. It actually came from the Italian immigrants in San Francisco at the wharf. At the end of the fishing day, the fishermen would run around looking for various fish just to create any kind of stew they could. So they'd run around and ask each other, do you want a chip in? Do you want a Cioppino? Do you want a Cioppino? Do you want a Cioppino? And thus Cioppino was born. My name is Yanni. This is Fisherman's Belly, where my goal is to help you cook your catch over 1,000 different ways. So, welcome to another video. And if this is your first time here, and you'd like to become a better fish cook, and cook any of the catch that you bring home, subscribe now, click the bell icon so that you don't miss a thing. So, let's get going on this recipe. I've got my pan on the fire. I'm going to put some olive oil in there in just a second, and I'm going to start dicing up one onion. So I'm going to add about 3 or 4 tablespoons of olive oil, extra virgin cold pressed. After all, this is a Mediterranean dish. So listen, Cioppino has a rich history, but I was surprised to find out that it did originate in San Francisco and not in Italy. I have always been leery about the Italians because the Greeks were in Italy for over 500 years before the Romans, and somehow or other, the Italians have taken credit for great foods, olive oils, great wines, and it was the Greeks that taught the Italians how to do it all. So let me dice up these onions. So let me grab my scooper upper here. And into the frying pan, they go. There we go. Okay, a little bit of salt. A little bit of pepper. Okay, next I'm gonna go after this red bell pepper. I'm just gonna give it a rough chop. I mean, after all, I'm sure the Italian fishermen at the wharf weren't culinary masters. Here we go. In go the red peppers. Next is the fennel. So what is fennel? Fennel grows wild all over Southern California, just like it grows wild all over the Mediterranean. Fennel has the same texture and the look and the feel of celery. However, it's got a slight licorice taste. Now, don't get put off by that. Fennel is incorporated into a lot of dishes all throughout the Med, and it is very traditional in this Italian Cioppino. And actually, here we go. And just like a celery root, I'm going to cut the bottom off. I'll cut the top off. Now some people use these fronds here, just like you would dill. Split this puppy in half and quarter it. And that's it. And that's it. Take a look at that. Alright, what's next? Garlic. So this stew is so easy to make, you'll be amazed. And by the way, a big shout out to my buddy Tony Park. My God, he brought me the freshest. As a matter of fact, he texted me and told me that he caught a bunch of sculpins, and I met him that day and picked up those sculpins. So thank you Tony. Alright, so I've got a rough chop on this garlic, and now it's going in. There we go. So we're gonna let that cook for about 4 or 5 minutes, and then the next item that we're gonna put in here is a can of canned tomatoes. A can of canned tomatoes. And we've got canned tomatoes from Italy. These are San Marzano tomatoes. These are the classic, very sweet, sought after tomatoes. I've got a link down below for these tomatoes. Believe it or not, Amazon has them available. So we're going to be putting in this can of tomatoes in just a minute here. And then I never ever make a tomato dish without incorporating fresh tomato. So I've got my handheld grater, and I'm going to grind up this tomato and put it in there as well. putting fresh tomatoes inside of your stew or your tomato sauce always adds this wonderful sweetness that you just cannot replicate with canned tomatoes or canned sauce or anything. So I always suggest get your hands on some good tomatoes and always incorporate tomatoes, fresh tomatoes, in your dish. Wow, wow. This is really going to be a stew. Okay, now I'm going to add a pinch of salt. Some more cracked black pepper. Plus, I'm going to add a pinch of oregano, right from my spice rack. Oregano is another traditional Mediterranean spice or herb, dried up herb. Now it's time for a tablespoon of tomato paste. Okay, I'm going to stir this up and let these flavors marry a little bit, and then I'm going to add 1 cup of white wine. And then we're going to start working on our fish. I'm telling you guys, I just absolutely love doing this. I mean, you know, this is restaurant quality food. This is top-notch food because we bring home top-notch ingredients like our fresh catch. So with just a few simple principles that you follow, you can always create great food. All right, I'm going to go after the wine. And I need a cup of white wine. I've got Pinot Grigio, which is an Italian wine. I love it. Perfect. Wow. White wine and fish, always, always, in my soups, in my stews, everything. As a matter of fact, I've got lots of fish stews and soups, but I've got my most basic fish soup, which is a great, great recipe. Just click right up here and you can have access to a basic fish soup that'll teach you how to make a fish stock. And trust me, I've had a lot of people tell me they love that recipe. In this particular dish, we're not going to make a fish stock. We're actually going to take our sculpin and lay our sculpin right down in this stew. Okay, so now that I've got the canned tomatoes in here and the white wine, it's time for one last ingredient, and that is the fresh grated tomato. Perfect. Wow. Okay. I'm going to let this simmer, and in the meantime, so it's going to simmer for about 10 or 15 minutes. In the meantime, we're going to go prepare 2 nice, healthy sculpins. So let's get going on that. Alright gang, these fish have been gutted. And the only thing I want to do now is I need to scale them. And thank God the scales are not very big, so it won't take long. And yes, by the way, we will be cooking these with the skin on. Perfect, look at that. Okay, let's go after these wings here with my kitchen scissors. Okay, that's perfect right there. Let's get this bottom one. Wow, that's a big one. Okay, there's one. Okay, so as you've guessed, I am going to be cooking these whole. And the advantage of cooking a fish whole is the bones are going to give off moisture and flavor. But I am not going to stick the head in. You know, if I was making a fish stock, I would definitely use the head. If I was grilling these, I would definitely keep the head. But I'm making this fish stew, so I think for all the squeamish women out there that don't want to see fish heads on their plates, this is going to be a perfect presentation. And I've got a very special tool for that. This is a serrated knife by Cuda, and it's intended to cut through fish bones. I'm very impressed with this, and actually I'm really impressed in how inexpensive and how good this thing is. And just like all the other kitchen gadgets and the tools and the ingredients that I'm using for this recipe, I'm listing all the links down below, so check them out. These knives are intended to cut through bones, and believe it or not, these Sculpin have got some thick bones, so come in closer and check out exactly what I'm going to do. This knife from Cuda just cutting through this like butter. It's wonderful. Wow. Normally I would use a meat cleaver or a hacksaw, but this knife does the job. Perfect. I'm gonna make a couple slits on each side into the thick part of the meat so we have even cooking. I've taught you that before. And then this is ready to be thrown into the stew. God. Wow. I mean, wow. Look at that. I mean, this knife just cuts right through this. Here we go. These puppies are ready for our stew. Ah, but wait, there's something else. Listen, this is a fish stew, and traditionally, the fishermen at the wharf would grab whatever they could, and that included mussels, clams, a variety of fish. So far, I've just shown you some sculpin. I do have some squid, because believe it or not, we've got some spots up and down the coast where a squid spawn is going on, and there's some squid around. So, I've already cleaned them. I've cleaned the insides of the bodies. All I'm going to do is chop them up into rings, and I've detached the tentacles. I've got a great video that goes through all the details, exactly how to do that. If you just click right up here, it's a squid pasta, but inside that video, I go through a great deal of detail to show you exactly how to prep and clean squid. Let's put the sculpin in there, into the stew. We're gonna put a lid on it and let it cook because it needs to cook for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. These squid only take a minute or two, so it's a matter of timing. Sculpin first, 10 to 15 minutes, and then the squid. So let's put the sculpin in. Okay. In with one, and in with the other, and on with the lid. All right, gang, it's been about, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 minutes. The fish looks done, and I'm getting ready to throw the squid in. I haven't added any salt to the fish, and I need to add a little bit of salt to the squid, but before I even add any salt, I've got to do the golden rule, and that is I want to sample a little bit of this tomato sauce to see whether it needs salt. Oh my God. It's perfect. It is just perfect. Okay, time to add the squid. Oh my God. Try and evenly distribute it here. Okay, just a pinch of salt. And now the lid. Okay, that's just gonna take a couple of minutes. I can just tell. God, look at the squid, the fish. You can tell everything's cooked. God, I love calamari. Oh my God, oh my God. And there's just one last thing. I've got some cut up green onions that I want to garnish this dish with. Simplicity at its best. The flavors are gonna be unbelievable. Go out and catch some sculpin. I know you guys are catching tons of those things. Bring them home and create this Cioppino stew. And please, if you have any questions about today's recipe, ask them down below. And don't forget to subscribe. That way you can keep up to date with everything I'm doing. This is Yanni, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Time to eat.